Here it is the next day after putting the Raptorliner on, bringing this project to a close. I started on this in June, middle of June, and this is kind of what I envisioned for it by the end, and we got there. Had to pull it out of the garage this morning to see what it looked like in the sun. Finished up last night with the Raptorliner, pulling tape lines just as it was getting dark, so I really didn't have a good chance to get a good look at it. Obviously the natural light brings out a lot. Shows where things went well, shows where maybe there's some imperfections that can be touched up and addressed later. But let's do a quick walk around, try to keep this one short. The reason we started this project a month ago was to address a few spots that had rust. The little backstory on this truck, I picked it up in December from a classic car cat in Elkhorn, Nebraska. He got it on an estate sale. He's into classic cars, and he got this on an estate sale out of North Carolina with some other cars. Really wasn't interested in the truck. All he really did was throw an interstate battery in it and post it for sale, and I jumped all over it. Now when I picked the truck up in December, we knew there was basically one spot of rust, or so we thought, and it was right here. It was surface rust. But then a month ago when I started, it had chrome fender trim on it. I took the chrome fender trim off, and I knew about the bubbled rust here, but then when that chrome fender trim came off, that's when this project got longer. Rust had blown through right through here, so I knew that, with this truck being 30 years old and kind of teetering on classic status, I wanted to get ahead of the rust. So I cut that bad spot out, cut all the rust back, found a donor fender on Facebook Marketplace, cut out a patch, and we welded it in. Then we started in on the bodywork. At that point, I had to make a decision. Do I want to paint it to match, or do I want to try, do something different? And I decided after a lot of research to tackle the project with Raptorliner, because I knew my body work wasn't going to be perfect, and with the texture of the Raptorliner, I knew that was going to hide a lot of the imperfections within the bodywork, and also it would be a little bit stronger than base coat, clear coat. I live in Iowa. I'm not going to treat this like a garage queen. I want to drive it. I grew up in the 90s. These trucks, these GMT 400 OBS GM vehicles, kind of hold a soft spot in my heart, and it's going to be driven. I'm going to drive on gravel. I hunt. It's going to be used, but I wanted to, obviously address the rust, and for those that are familiar with these vehicles, address the spots where these trucks really are the most vulnerable for rust. And where they're the most vulnerable for rust is basically that, at least for surface rust, that body line on down from where I applied the Raptorliner. This truck had the original, and you can kind of see the moldings still on the bumper. It had these moldings that ran the length of the truck from bumper to bumper. Peeled those off, and what was the biggest bear was it had the classic stainless steel rocker panels that ran the entire length of the base of the truck, and taking that off was tough. Consisted of several hours and a heat gun and plastic body, auto body wedges and knives to kind of work that off. And then came the fun stuff with patching the far side fender, filler, all that fun auto body stuff. Overall, pretty pleased with how things turned out. This passenger side turned out, arguably a little bit better. Tape line's really clean. The fenders, they're as symmetrical as I could get them with my eye. With the tape line, I wanted to follow. It's a very subtle, you can see the tape residue. There's a very subtle body line from this fender, and obviously you pick it up really easy along the base, but it's very subtle on the fenders and wheel arches, and I wanted to follow it and make it as symmetrical as I could. Is it perfect? No. But for tackling this at home, it's about as good as it can get. The color I tinted it with is Coyote, Custom Shop Coyote Tan. Was trying to mimic as best I could without having a paint jobber mix up the blend. That light autumnwood metallic, a classic light autumnwood metallic that GM was kind of famous for having through the mid 90s all the way to, I think they even still carry the color in some of their current vehicles. To give it that two-tone look. I could have went black. I could have mixed it in green to match the truck, the emerald green. That was my initial thought, but I was afraid, well, what if the emerald green isn't a perfect match? Then at that point I might as well have done a different color entirely. And that's when I went down the rabbit hole of this Coyote Tan tint. The topper will eventually be painted to match. And do emerald green in that, and that'll blend in a lot easier. The really only, I guess, little mistakes that'll have to be addressed later after a couple weeks of curing. This truck was titled and spent most of its life in North Carolina before coming to Iowa last December. So I knew, based on other spots in the truck, the clear coat was kind of weak. And as I was peeling tape last night, and you can see it right there plain as day, the 3M tape pulled clear in a couple spots. Back here's probably the worst spot, back on this left quarter. That'll be addressed in a few weeks. I'll give the Raptor time to cure. I'll tape it down from the Raptor on down, get some 2K clear, blend it in, and get a razor blade, clean this up where the tape didn't pull or adhere very well because of the clear that was coming off with it. If I had to do this project differently, probably would have sprayed it. I ended up rolling it. It's not bad. The reason I avoided spraying it, one, I wasn't sure if my air compressor was going to be able to keep up. It probably would have. But then secondly, I knew about clear coat issues. Again, here's a little clear coat boo-boo right there. I knew there was some clear coat and taping issues, and I was like, well, if I have to mask more of this truck off and tape it, am I gonna start pulling more clear off than what I want to dabble with? So at that was kind of the ultimate deciding factor of rolling it. Less tape, less masking, less potential of pulling clear off. Overall, I'm pretty pleased with the texture's fairly consistent. We'll get you up close in person. It's consistent and random. Maybe a couple spots where I got a little ambitious with the roller or didn't quite catch it as I was wrapping up. Yeah, not bad. All the prep work involved, kind of start to finish, pulling had chrome trim rings around each fender, pulling those off. It had that black molding on it that ran the length of the truck from bumper to bumper. This stuff, pulled that off. That pulled off pretty easy. Pulled that stainless trim off. Sanded everything with the DA, probably 80 grit. When that stainless trim came off, it pulled off paint, clear, and a lot of primer. So then there was low spots I had to fill with body filler. Obviously the fender up here, can hardly even tell where we did that patch panel job. Right there. And then on what a lot of people would probably forget about, or Skip if they were to try this on their own. And I don't know, I must have tossed the can. 3 coats. Underneath that Raptor is 3 coats of epoxy primer. So we're really, that's kind of probably kind of the biggest thing, is to give this truck a fighting chance of making it 30 more years in spots where it is susceptible and prone for rusting. So, you know, underneath this wrap, you can tell it's pretty thick. It's pretty thick. Still curing. I don't want to lip it off. But there's 3 coats of Raptor and then 3 coats of epoxy. Guesstimating maybe the thickness in mils, maybe 25-30 mils of thickness between those 6 cumulative coats of product, which should give this thing a really good chance to at least not rust from the outside in these spots where they're, I guess, really vulnerable for it. This passenger side probably turned out the best in terms of clear coat boo-boo and straight clean tape lines. I'm gonna go park it inside. Gotta get some mowing done. Thanks for following along.